So we are drafting. So what is our cutoff year? 2000 or 2001?
I would say I'd start 2001.
2001 to 2021.
Yeah.
The new Braves
That
are.
way,
20 most
that way,
recent.
the Yankees have only
Yeah.
one team in play, but I heard that the Red Sox may have 4 teams in play for
Yeah.
the discussion. I could be wrong on that.
The Red Sox part of this is going to be interesting. Me and BBD are pretty big Yankee fans. That doesn't mean we don't appreciate the Red Sox, but we will see where it lands. We're drafting from the last 2021 championship winner since 2001.
I can write whatever number I want.
Any number,
1 to 100.
Okay, we ready?
So I've written down 89.
I wrote down 21.
14.
14, okay. I'm hitting the number generator
Looking
once.
at
I'll
it
have
as well.
BBD and I shot. The number is 64. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the number 3 pick, the wraparound. So I will get the 3 and the 4 pick at the back end of the draft. BBD, I believe you are the next closest to the bocce ball. What pick would you like?
You're taking the number 3 pick. I think on this one, I would like that middle pick.
Okay. BBD will take the second pick. Chris Rose, you've stumbled into the number 1 pick in the draft. That was some old NFL draft, Vikings running up to steal the pick stuff right there.
Yeah, that was really interesting. Now the question is my number 1 overall pick going to look more like Jamarcus Russell,
Ooh.
or is it going to look more like Joe Burrow?
Ooh.
So, yeah.
Burrow looks good, huh?
Yeah. So we mentioned here at the top of the show that the Red Sox are going to have 4 teams in this discussion in play. So they basically have, 20% of the teams that you could. And I said, well, which one is the best one? Is it the one that snapped the streak? I think I've got it narrowed down to 2 of them.
Okay.
Is it the one that snapped the drought of 86 years in 2004? Because you look at the rotation of Pedro and Schill there, obviously at the top, and Derek Lowe was at the top of his game. And the monstrous lineup, right, of Johnny Damon and Poppy and Manny and my man Millar and Veritek holding it down behind the dish. And I said the one thing that team didn't have was a bona fide closer they were kind of a mix and match sort of team. So the only other Red Sox team I could go with is the 2018 squad, one which beats your Yankees in the divisional round. The one which may have had perhaps some help. That's the only thing that is giving me pause to take them with the number 1 overall pick. And I know some fans might be turned off by this, but I really believe that the 2018 Red Sox, with an MVP in Mookie Betts, Chris Sale, really, really good. The thing I loved about that team that year was that they had arguably the best closer over the previous 10 years in Craig Kimbrell. He struggled in the playoffs. They picked him up. He didn't even get the last out of their championship.
Yeah.
It was Chris Sale at striking out Manny Machado. I loved the versatility of their starters in the playoffs because they didn't mind saying, hey, I'm a team guy. They only used 5 starters in their 14 games in the playoffs that year. All 5 of them also pitched out of the bullpen. That's versatility to go along with a bang-up lineup. I am taking the 2018 Red Sox.
It's hard to do a whole lot better than 108 wins. That's
most in franchise history, by the way.
They were going in this draft. A couple Red Sox teams are going to go in this draft, kind of like you referenced. And yeah, man, I mean, that team all year, so there's the high-end talent, like you said, Kimbrell, who kind of gets overlooked when we talk all-time closers, some of the stuff he's done in his career, obviously what Sale did. Man, I don't know how we're going to label it. We always joke about making a J war, a Jomboy Media war to measure, just to kind of make a joke, not a joke out of war, but just to show that you can do your own thing. This team had something else that we're trying to embody. We call it TAO, taken advantage of. It just felt anytime the other team gave an inch, I mean, they were going to unthread the whole sweater. And they did the whole season, 108 games, the playoff run. I mean, what did they do? Their playoff run, 3-1, series win against the Yankees, 4-1 against the Astros, and then the Dodgers in 5. So they were just
really ran
dominant.
Through everybody.
And one thing we forget about is how good the defensive outfield was. I mean, Benintendi probably saved that series on that catch against Alex Bregman. That's it. If that bounces off his chest, Astros win that game, it could be a different series. But because they had Betts, Jackie Bradley Jr., and Andrew Benintendi all at the top of their defensive aura, that was a big thing as well.
Also, we talk a lot about teams that come in as like the best team in the league and didn't really have much to play for down the stretch, and they had that. Wasn't a problem for them, which it probably is overstated as is, but it is a talking point we usually have, and it wasn't an issue for that team.
For them. Good pick, Chris Rose, King
Thanks.
BBD.
All right.
You have the two pick.
There's really 3 teams I'd be very comfortable picking here. We've talked a little bit. There's 2 teams that broke very big droughts, and one of them didn't destroy second grade for me. We're talking about 108 wins.
By the way, when you mentioned that, BBD, you just destroyed my experience.
That was guerrilla warfare.
I just won the draft.
I just want to say that.
That was tough.
We talked about 108 wins, about 108 years. I'll take the 2016 Cubs.
Breaking my heart anyway.
Who also broke Chris Rose's heart. At the risk of having a couple other picks that I think Jake might be interested in.
That was BBD, the 108 wordplay there. I mean, that spoke to Chris Rose's heart. You could see that happen live. An awesome team. Just an awesome team. That curse and what it meant for that city to feel the pressure, the years removed from, Steve Bartman and all of that stuff that was so big in like baseball pop culture for a little bit. And the team was just stacked. I mean, stacked. And Chris Rose, I mean, I guess I can spin it to you a little bit because this was against a team you like.
Love. So it's always an honor to cover the World Series or to cover the Super Bowl. It really is. I don't take it for granted in both the sports that I cover. To having the ability to cover your own team at that level is unlike anything I'd ever experienced. And I remember after Game 5, when the Cubs staved off elimination back at Wrigley, how many of my friends at MLB Network were like, "You're good, dude. Don't worry about it. You're going to get to win it in Cleveland." I was like, that's not the way we roll in Cleveland. That's not how we're thinking. But it also coincided with my son's 16th birthday, and I promised him, I said, I will take you guys out of school, fly you and your mother out to Cleveland. We got pounded Game 6, and then the legendary Game 7, and the Rajai Davis home run. We were in the Mike Napoli suite. He invited us, his family invited us in next to a bunch of Cubs executives' families. And when they gave it up, I blacked out and started screaming at the top of my lungs, "That's what you fucking get for bringing in, I don't even want to talk about it anymore, what I said about Aroldis Chapman at the time. But they're looking at me like, what the hell? My 11-year-old was like, "Dad, are you okay?" But it was an amazing experience. Great team. Ruined my day. Okay.
So, BBD really twisting the knife on you there on multiple fronts, but that's
just an all-time series. And during like the full scary COVID times, they were playing a lot of old games, and that one came on a few times. They've been kind of at the front of my mind since then.
Yeah. And now especially there's the kind of ripple effect throughout baseball that now those guys are going on to kind of their second half journeys. Rizzo, Baez, Bryant. It's Schwarber. Yeah. God, he was awesome this year.
Came back.
BBD.
Who's like one of the last men standing?
What's that?
Like that, one of the last guys standing that was a huge, huge part of that World Series is Kyle Hendricks.
So
good. Yeah.
And still good.
Where did his year land? Because I know he was having some ups and downs.
I think he ended up okay.
4.77 ERA
I'd be
is
curious
nice.
at the month-by-month split.
I'd have to check it out because he's 14-7 record for a bad Cubs team. The WAR is not there. I don't know. Interested to dive into that later.
He's had one of a very sneaky, just like really good career.
Yeah,
man.
Really solid career.
You can go into a bit of a compiler stage.
3.36 career ERA. All right. I have the back-to-back snake draft picks at the end here. I am in an interesting spot. I kind of thought I was going to get the Cubbies. BBD went there, and that's fine. Which has me between a couple teams that I honestly hated, and maybe that's making me respect them just a little more. I am going to go with, you know what, a team that broke my heart and broke another curse. You already touched on it. I think both of you touched on it. The 2004 Red Sox.
Okay.
You know, there's the Robert Steele coming back 3-0.
So
Schilling.
you were in high school, right? In 2004?
I was in high school, yes. And so, yeah, I mean, this is prime if you're
Connecticut
a
high
kid
school.
falling in love with sports in Connecticut. Yeah, I mean, this was the lunch table. And it's so funny. I mentioned it on Talking Baseball, or actually probably more so Talking Yanks, that it's, some of the Yankee conversations cracked me up because I grew up in an era that, all of my Red Sox fans and Mets fans screamed, "You guys buy championships, blah, 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 the Yankees, all of that." And then, Yankees Twitter today is, cheap Hal. And, if they could see it now, which is funny in its own way and definitely Twitter. But this team, man, Schilling and Pedro, Poppy, breaking the curse. Yeah.
For it to also not only break the curse and all that, but kick off like an era of Red Sox dominance that has kind of gone on since then. Some down years mixed in, but
So I will just say this as a guy who didn't have a team I was rooting for in that series. Once the Red Sox started coming back, I was like, "Oh my God, this is kind of cool." And then you were like, "Yes, they're going to do it." And then they sweep the Cardinals, who Millar always said, those cute little Cardinals, they had no chance. Once we beat the Yankees, we knew they had no shot. And now it has become annoyingly frustrating watching that franchise win. It really has.
Yeah, it's this is also where my speech normally lands. It went from generations of lovable losers to generations of lovable losers that now are armed with like the most championships in a 2-decade span ever for, Patriots, Red Sox, Bruins, Celts got one in there. So, yeah, that did make some lunch and college conversations tough. But yeah, just hopping on the baseball reference for that team quick. I mean, like the year Mark Bellhorn and Bill Miller had, like those guys get mentioned late in the conversation. They had OPSs in the 8s from second base and third base.
Bill Miller was the batting champion.
Yeah.
Back when we cared about batting average.
Yeah. Gabe Kapler, so there was good leadership inside. Love Gabe.
wow.
All right, so spinning it back, and Keith Folk, by the way, he was really good for a while. Anyways,
He was good, a good player, really good.
so I will piggyback that team. Man, am I about to torture myself?
What are you doing?
That's our life.
What are you doing? Do it. Spit it out.
I'm gonna do
Out
it.
with it.
I'm going with the Diamondbacks, the 0-1 Diamondbacks that sneak in. The starting pitching conversations around baseball are going to be interesting in the next couple years to see the starting pitcher hopefully revival and some different things. Schilling and Randy Johnson, what they did. Luis Gonzalez, that was the year of his 57 home runs. They lost a couple World Series game in as crushing fashion as you could to a Yankees
Young Kim.
to a Yankees dynasty, and they still found a way to win the series. So, I don't know. Schilling and Johnson at that point in their careers, excuse me. I don't know. I guess reliving it, there was some, the Byung Kim stuff and the Yankees and Jeter and the Ghoster out, and they did it twice in Brocious and Dynasty, and they stomped it out. The Arizona Diamondbacks, I know they're Jake Snakes now, and I don't want to depict it in a bad light, but normally when you go around the major sports, it's the Celtics or the Lakers or the Dodgers or whoever it was. The Arizona Diamondbacks, this team was nasty.
So it's really interesting. Do you remember? I mean, you were a kid. What were you, 11?
I was 11.
Okay.
You would have just
12?
turned 12?
Yeah.
By the end of it?
So this was the one on the heels of September 11th. Okay. It's the first World Series since then. And New York was in it. And New York was this, with all due respect, stuck-up championship franchise. And in any other year, if you were just a baseball fan and didn't care about Arizona, or you would have never rooted for New York, ever. But based on what happened in our country, there was a real different feeling. You weren't looking at the Yankees, you were looking at the New York on the front, and you had a different feeling when the series started. And then when the magic was happening with Jeter and Brocious and Tino and all that sort of stuff with those late home runs, we were like, wow, this is really meant to be. And then the series got back to Arizona, and for some reason that washed away. And we're like, we've got to get 7 games out of this, just as a baseball fan. And it is amazing that, do you even know who the other 2 starting pitchers were on that Arizona team?
So, it could have been, I know Miguel Batista. I love Miguel Batista.
Yes.
I remember I forget if we were rewatching this or whatever it was. Good-looking guy. I didn't appreciate that at the time. Piercing eyes.
Yeah.
And I'm going to their page right now, so I'm not sure who else.
Brian Anderson. And that's right. If you on your bingo card had who watched the Browns beat the Steelers on Sunday Night Football in Chris Rose's house in 2003, if you had Brian Anderson as the answer, you are correct.
Wow.
He's a huge Browns fan. He's from, I believe, Geneva, Ohio. So he used to fill in on Best Damn occasionally. I was like, you're in town. Why don't you come over and watch the Browns game? We watched Tim Couch and the boys kick the crap out of the Steelers one night. Sidebar.
Okay.
I thought cute little story.
Looks like Geneva High School and Wright State University.
Yes, Wright State. I think he was like the number 3 or 4 overall pick in the draft.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a bingo card.
But they had a lot of really good veterans on that team.
Yes.
Matt Williams, Mark Grace, Jay Bell, Damian Miller. A lot of really, really good. I think Tony Womack was on that team and got a couple of huge hits in the playoffs. So Reggie Sanders, the outfielder that won a ring with the Reds, and then he played in a ton of World Series, by the way. So really, really good team. And Bob Brenly was the right guy. I think he took over for Buck out there.
Yeah.
And didn't have a lot of rules, but just kind of did his thing. Good team. Good pick.
It's if you're a baseball reference person, you love clicking around. Everyone you just said, I mean, the Steve Finleys, Reggie Sanders, I mean, their careers. But there's also some guys, David DeLucci. Rubio Durazo had a big year for that team. Junior Spivey's there. It's a great baseball reference clicking page. BBD, back to you.
Well, this is a pick. I don't think I could have passed on it twice. I think either of you might have been willing. We're probably going to pick it at some point for different reasons. I'm taking the 09 Yankees. Give them to me. Only Yankees championship I've gotten to see. Only Yankees championship eligible in this draft, which I'm sure the comments will be thrilled to remind us about.
I feel for you.
Yeah.
Such hell.
But, man, it was a good year, fun story. Every offseason, I feel like we try to act like it's going to be the same because it was always like very obvious Yankees were going to go just sign everybody. This is the one that the Yankees really did buy the championship.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of every time Red Sox Mets fans would get mad at you at school, it's like kind of have to give you, all right, they bought this one, but also like you don't get bonus points for doing it on the cheap. So
it's also the pinnacle of CC's career, right? Wins the Cy Young in Cleveland, but wasn't able to close out the Red Sox in Game 5 of the 2007 ALCS. Red Sox ended up winning 3 straight, going on to win the World Series. 080 gets traded to Milwaukee and had that remarkable run where it felt like he was pitching every other day. And then in the ALCS, the Yankees, I think, only used 3 starters in that round against the Angels. And CC ended up being the ALCS MVP, got that huge contract in the offseason, and that was really the top of the mountain for him of an outstanding and, in my opinion, Hall of Fame career.
And really, you look around just at that roster, and it's a crazy group. That infield is all time. You go around the horn. The outfield is also all good guys. Matsui ends up as the MVP of that series, and he's kind of the forgotten guy somehow. Rivera's there at the back end of the bullpen.
The infield, I mean, Rodriguez, Jeter, Cano, Tex, and Jorge. That's those are big boy OPSs. Those are big boy home run numbers. However you like to measure hitters, that's a special one. And like you said, BBD, that's before you get to Damon, Swisher, Matsui. Hell, Melky was pretty damn good.
Gardy was in the mix.
So yeah, that team was going to go in that draft. I think you took it at a apropos point. Chris Rose, you know how have the back-to-back snake.
Hold on, man. Can we play show and tell real quick?
Okay.
This is another reason I thought it might not survive again.
How's this?
Yep.
It's pretty not bad, Rosie.
There you go.
There you go. I've told you this, and I do it with Trevor Plouffe about his playing days. There's a couple times that I talk to you, handsome devils, and I really appreciate it. Like when I see that picture of you, when I see that Trevor Plouffe faced Mariano Rivera.
I know, that's pretty damn cool, dude.
That's
I will share this one little story with it,
Please.
just because I love it so much. You know, I lost my sister 5 years ago, whom I was very close with. And I think Twitter was around in 2009, or at least places where you could chat about stuff. But it wasn't obviously as open as we've got these days on social media. So I was up there doing my thing, and I still get all the shit for calling Derek Jeter Jeets up on the podium, which I can live with. Probably shouldn't have done it, but I did it. I talked to my sister after the game was over, and she's crying her eyes out. And I said, Lori, what is the matter? And she goes, they're saying such mean things about you on the computer. And I said, Lori, don't open your computer. You have a choice. I said, most people who get on those are going to be mean. And so they're not going to say nice things about your baby brother. She was a senior in high school when I was born. And so she was very protective of me. And all I said was, just don't do it. Like, if I can deal with it, don't let it bother you. She's like, but you're my baby brother and all this sort of stuff. And I thought you did a great job. And I said, thank you. I said, I appreciate it. All I care is that you thought I did a good job and my bosses. The rest of the people, I can take them or leave it. Some people like it, some people won't. And so you just sometimes have to have a little discussion with the family about stuff like that. And we always joked about that afterward. So just want to sneak that in.
Yeah.
I miss my Lori Jane.
I didn't know my mother and her sister have the same gap. I think senior of high school, and then my mama was born. So that's cool stuff, Chris Rose. So good pick, BBD, to snake that from him, so he can't use those emotions on us in the draft. Really torpedoing you, but Rosie, you now get 2 picks.
I get the next 2.
Yes, sir.
All right, we're going to have to pick up the pace, and this is my fault because I'm talking too much. I am going to go 2005 White Sox.
Okay.
Really good team. Won almost 100 games. Could really mash. Jermaine Dye, was the World Series MVP. Yep. It really, I think, was their postseason run that put me over the top. They went 11-1. They swept the divisional round against the champion Red Sox. They bested the Angels in 4-1 in the ALCS. That was the series where A.J. Pierzynski ran to first when he acted as though he swung and missed when he actually tipped the ball. And Socha went crazy. And then in the World Series, they swept Houston and took care of business. And Bobby Jenks closed it out on the mound for their first World Series championship in 88 years.
Yes.
Wow.
You know, we talk about the Red Sox and their curse. Well, the previous year, they broke one that was 86. This one was 88. The thing I love most about them was obviously their pitching staff was they didn't need a damn reliever.
Yeah.
In the postseason. All those guys were throwing complete games. El Duque and Contreras and Freddie Garcia, and I forget if it was Danks, might have been the other one.
Garland.
They were really John Garland, Jon Garland.
Yes.
My fault. Yeah. So really, really good squad overall. Hated facing them. Loved Ozzie. So much fun to talk to. So good for them. Your thoughts?
That's a good one. They were definitely on the board. Konerko, as rock solid as an MLB career can be. He had 40 homers.
Yeah, borderline Hall of Famer.
Aaron Rowand, one of my favorite center fielders to watch ever. That's a good team, and you'll always get El Duque votes from us. Bobby Jenks, what a big boy.
Back-to-back Damaso Marte teams going.
Oh, yeah. What, Damaso Marte. Dustin Hermanson, the closer on that team in the regular season. I never would have gotten there.
I saw Dustin Hermanson pitch in college. He was at Kent State in the same conference as my Miami University, and I used to call baseball games back then. I was like, this guy looks like he's really good. Like, this guy should be pitching in the MAC. He ended up being like the second or third pick in the draft.
How about that? All right. Well, Rosie, you get your third pick in the draft.
All right. I'm about to get motherfucked like I just called Derek Jeter Jeets. I'm going to take the 2017 Astros.
I love it.
They were too talented to not have a place in this draft. And I wrestled with it because I still mess with my emotions about this team. Because I think they were so good they didn't need to. I don't think it was an if-then scenario. If we cheat, then we will win the World Series. And we can all say that. It was interesting. They asked Bregman the other day, the last time he put on his 2017 World Series ring. And he said, I haven't since that day we got it. He said, because I'm thinking about the next one. And I wondered, was he really thinking about the next one, or is he too embarrassed to wear it? And how are you supposed to feel? I still wrestle with these emotions. I'm a huge baseball fan. I hate what transpired. I hate what they did. But at the same time, I think we have to be able to decipher that this team, there's a lot of talented players on this team. And I think they probably could have won the World Series without having done what they did. That was a great pitching staff. I loved what McCullers and Morton did out of the bullpen in particular. That lineup could mash for several reasons. Are people crucifying me for picking the 2017 Astros? And should they?
You may have lost the popular vote. I think
it's a good pick.
I think what's really interesting is if a couple ball games go differently the past week, I think there's kind of a house of cards argument to make your argument stronger. I think America was getting ready for that the Astros were going to win and that was going to vindicate 2017. Now I think it just leaves.
They got another one.
It leaves that loophole for arguments that they didn't. But yeah, that team was.
But they've been to two other ones,
right,
with a lot of guys. Mm-hmm. They've been to two other ones, which is a hell of an achievement.
They've been to 5 straight championship series.
Yep.
The players on that team speaks for themselves.
That's
okay. That's what makes the whole thing more frustrating, and just the historical impact it has. But knowing what we know now, it's important.
They were a wild
card. Do we not? I mean, we can't erase them. We can't expunge them because it happened. I watched it with my eyes, right? I suppose if the commissioner had taken a different stance and said they aren't the world champions, then I would not have drafted them. But they were a World Series champion. They were a pretty damn good team.
Yeah.
And there's some jokers that snuck through to win the title. So that's why, what do I have them as the 8th best team in 20 years? Top 40%? I don't know how you can look at that squad and say they weren't.
Keep it tight. I'm going with, I was between a couple teams. I'm going with the 2015 Royals.
Okay.
Their team, they won 95 games. Looking at that roster, I mean, Salvi's still doing it. Hosmer, one of his best years. Infante's kind of a funny one to look at. Escobar, Moustakas, Gordon, Locane. Really good team. And then on top of that, they kind of became an example for how the rest of the team for a while have been trying to build their teams, build their pitching stats from the bullpen forward. You have a lockdown bullpen. It's easier, in theory, it's easier to build that than get 3 dominant starters. So they've kind of changed baseball a little bit. And one of the teams, that Royals team was good for several years, and it's very important that they got one. Otherwise, it'd be kind of forgotten. It's like, oh yeah, they were like really good in the mid 2010s, but they got one.
That's I was planning on taking them, BBD. So that's a good pick. They changed baseball a little bit.
Might be correcting back a little now, but
no. If you
certainly changed the Yankees.
I think when you talk Trevor Plouffe, who played in that division, when you talk about Peter Moylan, they reference that team a lot because it changed baseball. It made it a 5-inning game. Those guys were so nasty, and their recipe was perfect for themselves. Good pick. Okay,
You've got
Jake.
your final 2.
My final 2 picks. I was gonna take the Royals. You know what? We'll see if it's recency bias. I generally don't think it is. I'm gonna go with the Dodgers. And I think Rosie. I think in different ways, if people really want to take shots at it, they could. If this Dodgers, they're kind of in their own mini dynasty. Whatever dynasty means, a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But this era of Dodgers baseball that has been high level winning baseball, if they never get one over 162, people will hold that over their heads. But when you put talent on paper and compare it to other teams, I think this team can dance with pretty much anyone, whether it's the lineup or the staff.
I would agree with you, but I can't. Here's the problem. I would have taken them way earlier, but I cannot compare a team, and I don't say that it cheapens the ring. It doesn't, because everybody had the same thing. But when you're talking about comparing eras, you can't compare somebody's 60-game season to 162. That's why I didn't pick them.
It's true.
It's so hard to quantify this.
They're not even on the board for me.
Wow.
It's because like the playoff structure virtually the same, and you know that Dodgers team was gonna make the playoffs. So does it fully matter? Then the people in that core, I think in that fan base, they want one more. And I think if we do this in a year and they have that one, this team never gets drafted, and you would take whatever team gets it over 162. But it's just such a good team.
And I want to make it very clear.
Great series.
I believe in the ring. 1,000%. I believe in the ring. And they should, all those players and everybody in that organization should be proud of it. I'm just saying, historically speaking, when we're having a draft, I can't compare a team that played 37% of the regular season to the rest of these teams.
I get it. And the playoff format was weird. I mean, they played on consecutive days, which they've never done. It was the season that was presented to them. And again, when guys like A.J. Pollock are bonus pieces, and like look what Kike's doing now, Chris Taylor, and that's ignoring the main guys on that team. But I just thought you and Justin Turner were friendly, but apparently you're not. And with my final, and didn't mention the pitching staff, by the way, Buehler, Urias, Kershaw, May, Gonsolin, Kenley. Anyways, with my last pick, I have to take a Giants team. How is there not a Giants team taken? I'll try to decide which one. I'm looking at an article that says it's going to help me. I'll go with the first one, the 2010 Giants. I don't know. A lot of the guys on that team. the young Posey, the young Mad Bum, Lincecum, Matt Cain, and another Chris Rose friend, Brian Wilson. And the article I'm reading right now describes their style of play as torture. So I like that.
Mhm. One thing people forget about that team, they did not clinch the NL West until the last series of the year. It was against the San Diego Padres. The Padres had an amazing year under Bud Black and couldn't quite finish the job. So the Giants had to fight all the way to the nitty-gritty and ended up rolling it after that.
Okay. BBD, you might have to make your pick, and then we'll have Rosie pick, give his discussion.
You're good. You're good.
You're good?
We're good. Yeah, we got 4 minutes.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So you got
Nice.
you got two, BBD.
I'm good. I'm glad you went with that pick because I didn't know how I was going to choose which Giants team went in this draft, and I knew I was going to kind of have to pick one, I think, if you didn't. I'm going to take the team that won. I think I'm going to take the team that won the next year, 2011 Cardinals.
Ah,
That World Series is an iconic one. They beat a Texas Rangers team that gets kind of lost in history a little bit because they never win one. David Freese performance, all of it.
The Chris Rose podium teams.
Yes.
Off.
Yes. Finally got them covered.
Damn. Yeah, that.
I was watching. Can I tell you this?
Please.
I'll give you this one. I was behind the right field wall getting ready to – I'm back there with like all the St. Louis's finest and all the MLB staffers getting ready to push the podium and the stage out. The ball that Freese hit off the wall, I was watching through the wall. Nelson Cruz is running toward me. I am watching it through a crack in the wall at Busch Stadium. I was like, oh, my God, what's going on? I hear this roar. Ball bounces off the wall. Freese gets a triple. My security that's with me is like, you got to get your ass back up to the set in case this ends so you can host the postgame show. So fat little Chris Rose is running through the bowels of Busch Stadium. And then I have to go back down there after Hamilton hits the homer. Then when Lance Berkman ties the game, I got to run back upstairs. And thankfully, Fried hits the walk-off homer. And I didn't have to run anymore. I was sweating bullets.
Shout out Chubby Chris Rose. No, that's rewatching that Nelson Cruz play is kind of like an oh my God if you're a baseball fan.
And what Nelson Cruz's career has been since then as a hitter, and then it's like, oh well, he hasn't touched a glove in 6 years.
Wild. All right, Rosie, finish it off.
2012 Giants. I actually thought they were the best of the 3 Giants teams. I like their lineup the best out of this. Remember, they made the deal to bring Hunter Pence over, and he was such a difference maker on the field, in that dugout as well. The one thing missing, 2 things, really. There was no Brian Wilson that year. It was Sergio Romo who became the closer because of injury. And Tim Lincecum was not Tim Lincecum. It really was Matt Cain who was the leader of that team. It was Cain, it was Bumgarner, who was still early in his career, and Ryan Vogelsong were the top 3. Plus a really stellar lights-out bullpen of guys that were mixing and matching all over the place. And I just thought I felt like it was the best lineup out of the 3 that produced championships. I could be convinced elsewhere, but it felt like the best one.
Yeah, those the Giants lineups, you almost have to look at names over stats for some of those guys for their seasons because it's just like what.
Yeah.
Some of them that don't seem to make sense, but I mean they were a true dynasty, man. And Matt Cain, we I think 1 week on here we did a draft of Hall of really good baseball players, and we did we made some requirements around it. And I think Matt Cain was one of the top picks in the draft. Like people, if you're a newer fan that's not familiar, like he was a dude.
For a couple of years there, he was one of the best pitchers in baseball. I'll also remember it for 2 other things. The Barry Zito game in the NLCS where the Giants, I believe, were down 3-1 against the Cardinals. Zito was only known for having that huge contract to come across the bay and didn't do anything. In fact, I think he was left off their World Series roster in 2010. Yeah. Came back and did his thing in 2012 in the NLCS. And then the iconic shot of Marco Scutaro in Game 7 of the NLCS where he's looking, it's the Shawshank Redemption shot, where he's looking up into the pouring rain that they're trying to get this game in. And he's just like this. I think he ended up being the NLCS MVP that year. Cool stuff.
Very cool stuff.